So one of the things that's interesting is how that people talk about this idea that different people will make different amounts of money. And it doesn't really matter what setbacks they have or what fields that they're working in, what industry or whatever. They're just going to make that amount of money basically. They're gonna tend to have a certain level of success. And I think that so I think it's probably useful to think about this in a broader context than simply in terms of money, But I think money gives us an interesting gauge because money is it's a reflection. In terms of a lead measure or a lag measure, it's a lag measure. So it's not money is not an input. I mean, it can be an input, but it's not in the sense that I'm talking about. Your earning capability, it's not so much. It's not really an input. It's an output, which means it's a reflection of something. So it's not that how much money you make determines your value as a person, but it's an interesting reflection of a certain set of something, right? There's something determining how much money you're making. Now, to be clear, there's ups and downs, I think, for most people. And so, like, for instance, there are some people, like, maybe they're an engineer in Google one day, making 300K, and then they get fired, and maybe they struggle to find something after that, right? So this is not this is not a golden set in stone, thing that you can apply universally across the board. But still, on the whole, I think what's generally kind of true is that your people have a set of skills, beliefs, and aptitudes that I think are going to tend to create a certain type of output, a certain type of the person that they tend to put in certain types of inputs into the world that tend to get a certain type of financial return. Now, you could say the same thing about relationships. Some people tend to be very relationally wealthy. They have a lot of friends or they have very deep friendships. And that's because of certain inputs that they're doing, they're getting certain outputs, right? And it's like it's so intrinsic to them or so natural to them that they don't necessarily think about it as like I'm trying to do a certain set of things. It's just natural to who they are. So if you were to so going back though to the money thing, it's an interesting arena to do these sorts of thoughts experiments in. You could take kind of the outside in or the inside out approach to making more money, right? So the outside in approach would be a little bit more in terms of, try to get lucky, if you will. Try to find a company like that pays more. Find a new job that pays more. Try to climb the ladder inside your own company, by butting up to the boss, or any number of like sort of tactics that you could take to try to get to the next level. On the other side, the inside out approach, you could look at it more from the standpoint of, so who am I as a person? What are my thoughts, my beliefs around money? What are my culturally? How did I grow up with money? How did I think about it? What are my expectations for how much I earn? What do I think is possible? All these things, everything between the ears, right? And in your heart. And then saying, okay, so I don't want to stay here. I want to improve. I want to get better. I want to be able to steward more. If we're going to use Christian speak here. And so in that scenario, what do I need to do? And maybe the answer is not do, but who do I need to become, right? So I know there's some coaches at least that have said this approach, and it makes a lot of sense to me, which is it's more around change who you are first and foremost. Change think about the kind of person who makes $500,000 or $5 million or $50 million, whatever to you is the next step up. Think about the kind of person who does that. And then consider who you are currently, or consider if you were that person, who would you be? How would you operate? What would be in your heart, in your mind? What would that be like? And then first become that person on the inside, and then over time, as you change your thoughts, you change your heart, and then that means you will naturally change your actions out of that. It'll be cohesive. It won't be like fake. It'll be really actually flowing from who you are. So change who you are, which you could say is actually potentially very hard work. But change who you are, and then you will naturally put out different things into the world. There'll be natural different inputs that you'll put into your environment from who you are, and then those inputs will create different results. And so I'm not saying this because I feel like I've really arrived in this area or really am some brilliant shining example of this necessarily. I'm just exploring it as a theory, and I think it makes a lot of sense. And that who you are is the most important element of the results that you get. And so why not start on the inside out? Why not start with who you are first, and then go to the results that you can get, the financial results, the relationship results, whatever those are. I think another area where this is pretty kind of easy to see, I think, is in terms of relationships, especially romantic relationships. So it seems like some people, they just get involved in these relationships that are just toxic, or you're just like, why is this going? Why does this person seem to attract people who are of this level? Like, why can't they attract people at a higher level, if you will? And attract, there's some baggage to that word, okay? But frankly, right? And so I think that I think that I think those people probably find, here again, I'm not wildly experienced in romantic relationships. I mean, I dated one woman, I married her. So, I don't have, I suppose, broad dating experience, but it seems like who you are as a person greatly impacts who you attract and who comes into your life in a romantic way. And so there again, it's just another. So I think, if someone came up to me and was like, hey, why do I just, maybe it's a lady and she's like, why are just, these lousy scumbag guys the only guys that come around and talk to me? Or like, why do I always seem to end up with this guy that's got serious personal issues, or blah, blah, blah. And I think, the honest answer would be probably, work on yourself, first of all. Become an upgraded version of yourself. And I think you'll be able to attract guys that are upgraded guys. And so it sounds brutal, sounds super harsh, that you're just not a good enough person. But it's not, it doesn't speak to your value as a person. If you're not getting the results, if I can't make any money, if I can't find relationship happiness, if my whole life is like, I seem to be getting negative results everywhere and nothing seems to be working, that is not saying that I don't have value. I absolutely have incredible, amazing, wonderful value in God's eyes. To God, I'm valuable. And you, regardless of your socioeconomic status, regardless of whether you're in a, epic marriage with an epic family, or whether you have a mile long of relationship disasters, regardless of whether you're a billionaire or, you're always qualifying for food stamps, it doesn't matter which of those you are. Your value completely separated, or completely independent, I should say, of that to God. Like, God loves you with this amazing love, and it's not dependent on your socioeconomic status. So let's just be really, really clear about that, okay? So it's these things that are, so we're not talking about your value as a person here. We're just saying, if you want to get different results in your life, a lot of times, I think the best way to start is to get your own heart and mind in the right spot first, and then I think the other stuff can flow out of that. Now, don't get me wrong, taking real action is important, but what's interesting about action is I think it's possible to be very successful based on the action you take, but still have your personal development, your own emotional, spiritual health kind of lag behind that. So you'll find, I think some of those people will have a lot of difficulty hanging on to their money after they made it. Other people, it's not necessarily that they have trouble hanging on to their money or that they have trouble building large businesses. They can be very successful in those terms because, who they are, in a sense, lends itself to making money and to being successful in that regard. But how many times am I going to say in that regard? But listening to them, I feel like there's a certain emptiness there in their success, and I don't necessarily want to be them because I feel like there's still some gaping holes in terms of meaning, purpose, and spiritual well-being in their life that it didn't prevent them from making all this money, maybe having all this friends, this popularity, whatever it is, but it's, you look at it and you're like, it feels, there's a hollowness that you feel there. And so I think that's another reason in favor of taking the inside-out approach rather than simply trying to change things from the outside in.